And welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today we have Dror from Intent IQ in the office. Dror, thanks for coming in.
Ciaran.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Today we're talking about addressability on the open web, and Dror is going to take us through the Intent IQ product and what problems it's solving. Before we do that, Dror, just give the audience, the viewing audience of AdTech, an idea of your role, and then a little bit about Intent IQ, because people will probably know you a little bit, but not that much.
Sure. So my name is Dror Yishai. I'm the CTO of Intent IQ. Intent IQ is an identity resolution company, a technology first. We've built a very unique device graph, very accurate, very scalable, and we're actually helping and solving problem of addressability, both for the supply side and for the buy side, by creating this identity solution that enrich their traffic.
Very good. Before we jump into how you're solving sort of the current malaise of sort of identity problems in the space, let's talk about the state of play in the open web, right? The addressable web, if you will. We spoke about it off camera there before we started filming, about how the addressable web is increasingly shrinking. When we had Safari, who sort of shut off people for the last number of years through sort of their privacy sort of initiatives, we're seeing Chrome sort of slowly decrease. Just give the audience a sense of where we're at in terms of addressable web and what, where things are going.
Sure. So if I'm going to take this board, I'm going to take like a circle and try to understand the size of the audience. Let's say you have Chrome, and then you have Safari. So far, those area of those users are kind of a way to address those users. But then anywhere from ITP with Apple, that area is no longer addressable. So you have a big chunk that was Safari, and it doesn't stop there. You also have iOS, that's the in-app area, which is also not available and not a way for you to address those users. But then you're talking about that Chrome area. So what happens right now is that even though third-party cookie and Google putting this holdback on the Chrome deprecation, you're still getting those signal loss from here to there on those Chrome users. And why? And it's growing. You have different protocol. You have GPC.
What's GPC stuff?
GPC, that's the global privacy consent that allows the user to turn on the signal loss from their browser.
Yeah.
And that's already approved on 6 states in the US.
Right.
So now you have those red dots are growing. You're actually becoming a larger portion of the addressable world that is shrinking.
Yeah.
And that was the case, and it's growing by those protocols and other means that not allowing you to target even those Chrome users.
Yeah.
So the trend is continuing to reducing signal, and reducing signal hurts both the publisher, so those are, let's call them the publisher.
Because it's losing addressable audiences across its audience.
Exactly. So the loss of signal actually hurting the publisher on their revenue, but on the same time, you have the advertiser on the other side trying to meet those audiences and to target them. And that's really the essence of the problem.
Yeah. And so what you're saying is like, that was already unaddressable for the last couple of years. And we've kind of ignored this. So we were over-indexing the Chrome cookies. But stuff like GPC and sort of the opt-out process that Google's going to roll out to the rest of the world is literally going to change that sort of dynamic as well. You will not have addressability.
Right. It's shrinking as we go, and it goes lower and lower and get worse. And that's where you need to find different ways and different addressable solution. And the main area where you find those solutions, those are the identity services.
Right.
Actually being able to identify the persona and still keep this targeting rolling.
Right, okay. Well, let's talk about that identity piece.
Okay.
How does someone like Intent IQ work in that space? Give us a sense of like how your technology addresses this problem, because we're attacking this issue, saying that the open web addressability is on the decline, right? It has been for a while.
Right.
There aren't any kind of real solutions to kind of cover that off. So we're looking for, solutions that can fix the ability for publishers to monetize their inventory and advertisers to sort of target addressable audiences.
So you have on one side, you have the publishers trying to struggle with those signal loss.
Yeah.
And us as Intent IQ, we recognize and understand that as a person, right, when you go on those iOS, you actually, for every different site, you have different ID, right? And then this is site 1, site 2, then that's different ID, right? And it keeps going and keeps going. And this is the fragmentation. Every person on just one iOS have so many different IDs. So one option is that you'll do a single sign-on, right?
Yeah.
Easy. Everyone would need to authenticate, but that's not flying because the coverage of this one is really low. And they're struggling
to get people to sign in.
To get people to sign in.
I have to say, I don't do it myself. So we're going to try to determine how to sort of attack that signal loss issue. Let's go through how you're going to work with both sides and how Intent IQ works.
Exactly. So on one side, we have advertiser trying to create different audiences, different set of rules and criteria to match those audiences to the publisher side. That's the supply. That's where Intent IQ utilized this 4-level of identity device graph that starts looking at a persona. And every persona has a device. And every device, we have what we call profile. And every device could have different profile. And we also have what we call the house level. So in this house, we will have other personas. But what's common to those is for every one of them, you have the issue of this first-party ID. And another one, again, first-party ID. Now, what we have done is we created a technology that knows to cluster those ID into this single profile by using machine learning and deep learning, right? That's the match process. Once you have that match process, you look at that person and then you try to understand if this device as a whole relates to that person. Mm-hmm. And that's where you use also both the hybrid solution of deterministic signal, like building a true set of real person that has authenticated on their devices. And then you teach this model and train this model. And then you can ask question, what is the probability of this device owning to this person versus to this person? And that's where the scale of what we're doing and processing billions of data points every day and reevaluating those connections every 48 hours. Mm-hmm. So it's really massive task to do the match. But once you have that, you're no longer looking on third parties or single devices. You have now a persona. That's what we call universal ID. So if you think about it and going to the advertiser side, now this audience of UID 1, UID 2, and so on, that's where we enable an actually platform to onboard and match through SSPs, through Deal ID, the connection between lost signals from the publisher by utilizing machine learning algorithm, processing a lot of set of data. using the deterministic set where you do have some of the audience authenticated with their hashed email or some other means, but then training the model gets you to anywhere something like 92 to 95% accuracy, but
Match
gaining,
rate.
this is the accuracy. So we sacrifice between 5 to 8% on accuracy to the scale of around 80%. The idea is that once you match those audiences and you onboard them through those SSPs, today in Tentech you have actually 3 SSP that we have this pipeline connected. We have the Magnet integration, Pamatic integration, and Nexen integration that actually enable any marketeer to find their audience not based on cookie, but actually based on universal ID that has really scale and really accurate. So we have a win-win situation from the publisher side, looking to provide a better experience, right, for those users, providing them relevant ads without the hassle of everyone needs to authenticate and log in, but still on the same time being able to solve the problem of every first-party ID on every site, because this is iOS. That's the word.
Is that excuse me? Is that the biggest problem you're tracking at the minute? Going to publish and say, look, you've all this iOS traffic that's being under monetized. The yield is horrendous versus your Chrome traffic.
Exactly.
Is that the sort of play to begin with? Because it would make a lot of sense, because publishers are obviously have a ton of iOS traffic, have a ton of Safari traffic, and they're just not seeing the same yields as they are from Chrome, because everybody else is using the old system to cookie match effectively.
So, exactly. The loss of signal actually hurts them on the SSP side and on the DSP side, because once they don't have those buyer ID coming in, they can't match it on the DMP. So what we're saying, okay, if we can solve the problem of those first-party ID and signal loss by matching them into universal ID, but on the same time provide a tool for the advertiser, for agency to onboard their user, whether it's hashed email, whether it's IDFV, IDFA, into those universal ID, and across those network that already now supporting around 80,000 sites and up.
Right.
So from one side, we got huge tons of supply, but now helping them to generate more revenue and fulfill their inventory. And at the same time, providing an answer for the buy side.
And I suppose it's not a massive move away from what they used to do, right? What they used to be. It's not a sense of like you've got to completely change. So, you can still, you know.
That's a great question. So sometimes, in most cases, you see the DSP living here, and having their audience here, and having the audience here, and now it's becoming like a transition where you can run the audience here on the SSP side, but still keep the same protocol of having the campaign, but this time someone else is deciding on the match of the audience.
It's you're building the curated deals on the supply side. DSP is just pointing at the curated deal and activating.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that this is an interesting sort of dynamic for the industry as well, because there has been a move towards a supply side piece, and you're right. Like the DSP have their own algorithm. The matching with SSP and DSPs doesn't work because it's very much based on the old world.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So like cookie matching is effectively dead in many ways, but then you're just kind of like almost like, oh, I've sacrificed, 60% of my audience, right? Let's say 10% of Chrome is, but like 50% of people in the UK are mostly using iOS, and these are the people with money. This is the point I actually keep saying to buyers, going, how can you ignore like probably the richest segment in the whole country?
It's like
Apple users. Like, I hate to be like a generalization, but like it's true. Most people who have Apple products are generally better well off than your Android.
Exactly, I own an Android. And you nailed it down, Ciaran, because that's one of the pitch that we're saying. Those are 180 million users that you are ignoring them, and we are now focusing on those lost signal by providing a very scalable universal ID, but on the same time very accurate without breaking the hassle of every user needs to authenticate. So
You talk about 180 million in Europe, just quick hour. That's not the UK, because there's only 66 million people in the UK, so 33 million.
Right.
Okay, very interesting. So, is this more of a mobile product, or is it omni-channel? Just give us a sense of that.
It's a solution that enables you to target from the buy side across all devices. You can do a CTV campaign.
Okay.
You can provide that for web traffic. You can do that for in-app traffic. Most interesting, recently what we're seeing is that when you enrich the in-app traffic with those other IDs into the bit stream, you generate a higher resolution also for the in-app traffic. But the same universal ID that is being applied on the bit stream, both for web, CTV, and those in-app, applies the same methodology of having them as a persona rather than single cookies and creating the matches on the SSP side.
I always have to bring this sort of wrinkle up, but privacy piece, it covers that all off. I mean, like...
Exactly. So this is a great question.
GDPR,
exactly. So
here.
we now just...
Well, actually, GDPR mode, where we're in some kind of privacy environment in the UK.
It's growing, and you collect badges. So we already collected CCPA, GPP, GPC, the previous one for the browser that we've mentioned, and the recent one is GDPR for Europe. So once you have all those, and you comply with all the regulation of protecting the user and on the same time solving the problem, then privacy becomes not an issue. Obviously, that area is more challenging, and that's what we're now facing with understanding how this GDPR and purposes works for the publisher, because every vendor, when they get into this publisher, needs to be approved by the CMP. So that's what IntentIQ is providing, a holistic solution that includes all of the above to be able to transact not just for the rest of the Europe, but also for Europe. And we're also seeing great result here in the UK.
Okay, great. And you've just basically sort of rolled this out into the UK, and you're obviously going to look at Europe as well as the next sort of big market. Like, what's the sort of like, how do people work with IntentIQ at the minute? Is it sort of like working on deals? How do you see sort of it being rolled out?
So first of all, we're actually putting technology to show its value by showing performance. So once the publisher plugs in, immediately you see the performance of generating more yields,
more revenue,
higher fill rate, but on the same time improving your CPM. So today the goal is like based on a rev share model where if only you're getting more revenue, that's where you have to pay for the fee. So it's not like
incremental revenue.
Incremental revenue. It's like a win-win for all sides. Exactly.
Okay. Thanks, Dror. That was a great walk through sort of the problems existing in the current ecosystem, and you guys building this very, very interesting piece of technology that addresses that sort of blind spot in the open web. And I'm sure we'll see more from Dror and the team this year. And thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Greg. Great.
And we'll see you next time on Trader Talk TV.